The first time I heard someone singing out of raw emotion without the words exactly clicking with a song, rhyming with a song or whatever, just the whole beauty of the song is it being pure. And this is what pulled me most, because what I was looking for all my life was purity and truth. So this is the first time I felt a sense of truth somewhere, and I ran after that with my life.
How many people stay on the track they're born to? Meet Isaac Fogel. He grew up in the Satmar community and along the way had a hard look at himself. You will hear about Isaac's decision to leave his world and what ultimately brought him back. It's fascinating. In this episode, you may hear us bleep out some information because we felt details didn't really add value. Stick around to the end and you'll hear why we shot this episode twice. You'll hear about Bitbean's leading tailor-made technology for many industries. You'll hear about Stam Azoy and why they are the #1 Sefer that's literally a WhatsApp away. You'll hear about the cell phone service, US Mobile, taking the world by storm. And of course, Twillory, my favorite clothing brand on planet Earth. This episode is in memory of Shimon David ben Yaakov Shleima and Miriam Sarah bas Yaakov Moshe. Here we go. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Isaac, thanks so much for doing this. Can you tell us about yourself and about your background growing up in the Satmar community?
Hi, my name is Isaac Fogel, Yitzchak Fogel. I grew up in Williamsburg in Satmar, and it was actually, now looking back, it was a fascinating and amazing experience. Obviously, when you go through life, not always feels every single part of your life that it was a great experience, but looking back, everything is part of what built you and what made you become who you are. So ultimately, it was an amazing and very interesting experience growing up in a world where this is your whole world. You grow up in a place where this is the only place that really matters to you. This is the only family and community that matters to you. This is the only language that matters to you, the only language you really know. And it's not necessarily good or bad. It just is. Very interesting experience.
So I think for a lot of Orthodox Jews watching this and listening to this, which is probably, 95%, but there's still a percentage of people who aren't Orthodox or maybe not even Jewish. How would you describe to them the Satmar community?
Satmar community is like, there's Orthodox, there's ultra-Orthodox, there's ultra-Orthodox, and then there's Satmar.
Interesting, okay.
So Satmar is unlike other Hasidus. It's in a way very extreme, both in a good way, meaning in every aspect they are in the extreme version of something. For an example, the Chesed, which means doing good,
charity, good stuff, kindness.
Who beats Satmar? Nobody does. But at the same time, when it comes to holding an opinion, they would want everybody to think and, believe like them because, again, comes in the extreme. Everything comes with a good part and, not such a good part.
Right, like anything in
everything
life,
is a balance.
There's good and bad.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, so going through your childhood, would you say you had a good childhood? Was it filled with challenges? What was it like for you?
I thought, should I answer good or bad? Now you gave me the opportunity to say it was full of challenges. So we're gonna kind of keep away from good or bad because it's not really for us to say. Everything is meant and Hashem has a reason for everything.
You got here because of it,
Exactly. Every single part of my life. So really, it was very, very challenging in a way growing up and being, I consider myself an artist at least, and artists like to hunt for truth. Hunt and try to understand things, and they want to be comforted and understood. And it's a little bit hard when you grow up in a way where, a path is drawn for you and you can't really do anything. Not that you can do anything yourself, it's just not built that way.
It's not part of the system.
Exactly.
Could you give an example of like something that you wanted to do or express yourself in a way that like the system, again, good, bad, whatever, it's just the system that it didn't allow you to be that, I guess, artist?
Okay, well, it's not limited to physical things. For an example, you can't really sit now or you can't really stand now. It's just the way you grow up. It's really a mindset. It's a mindset of you joining whatever everybody else is doing. You can't be that one standing out, which is, again, not good or bad. It's just very, very challenging for people that naturally stand out in a way.
Like when you were a teenager, a young teenager, the way you dressed was like, white shirt, black pants, like the full Hasidic garb, I guess?
I grew up with the whole 9 yards. I grew up, with the white shirt, the black pants, all of it. Meaning,
yeah, sorry. I'm interrupting you. Sorry, go for it.
It's completely okay. it's not only a dress code. With that dress code comes responsibility. The dress code has to be worn, kept, be sacred, and it has to be not only respected, but it has to be a sample in a way, which is very challenging. Again, when you're expected to be a sample of something you don't really stand for, or you don't want to stand for, what does this represent? Just kind of, it's either triggering to some people, meaning I'm just speaking in general. To some people, it's triggering. To some people, they can't handle it. To some people say, okay, you know what, this is it, then I'll just stick with it.
Did you learn any English in the system that you were in, or not really?
Okay, so here's what they do. They take a Rebbe, which is a Rebbe all day, and whatever, and he has to make a little extra money, and they get him to be a teacher, and that is the teaching of English. So you have an hour of having fun / teachers trying to teach the English that he can or can't, meaning...
Yeah. No, it's funny. Ironically, I'm asking you about the English language, which you're giving an answer about the English subjects, which is a question that I had also. But I mean the English language. Like, is there any actual, like we're talking English now, is that spoken in that part of Williamsburg or not really?
Again, growing up, that was not the case. These days, it probably has changed as the whole world evolves at some point, and probably became a little bit more English, and a lot of more people understand English, and probably the teachers upgraded as well. But back then, the teachers were basically Rebbes from the whole day. They decided to teach English, and they don't really know English. So it was just an hour of having fun and getting, the principal coming in and coming out, and that was our English lecture.
So what was your parents' relationship with you like? Was it contentious? Were you fighting all the time, or was it, they were more on your side, but like you're just trying to find yourself? Like how did that dynamic work?
Again, I always loved them and they always loved me, and I know it. Again, I didn't always know it, obviously, from a kid's mind. Oh my gosh, your parents do something against you, they totally hate you. Meaning that's just how a kid thinks. But now looking back, obviously, they never hated me and I never hated them. I always loved them. They always loved me. Now, again, it was a little challenging because them growing up, they were completely okay with following a path. And I was not really okay with that. And they tried to make me become that person that is okay to follow any path. And that was not really an option for me. That's not what I wanted. I always wanted to stand out. I wanted to be, in a way, I wanted to be like everybody else, because if you're different and nobody understands you, it's rather to be felt and understood rather than just standing out and just being alone and nobody understanding you. So again, sometimes I made that choice as well, just to be in a system which is not really okay for me, but I just wanted for people to understand me and be alike with other people. Just in the Gemara it says, Oy chavrisa, oy mesisa. It's either you have, meaning the idea of it is that social life is extremely important and it's literally part of people, regardless if you're introverted or extroverted. You really need to have people in your life. So it was very important for me, and it was really challenging, my parents seeing that I can't really get along with the things that they can get along, and the things that they're okay with, I'm not okay with, because they loved me and wanted me to have a good life like they believe that they have. And they believe that the good life they have is the good life everybody should. While, everybody has his way and everybody tries to be what they can and the best they can.
So how many brothers and sisters do you have?
We are 5 altogether. We're all boys.
All boys. Wow.
A gang.
And you're the oldest?
I'm second to the oldest, which is actually a very good thing, because if I would have been the oldest, I would have probably had a harder time with my parents being the sample of the family. Right. While I was the second one, I was a little, they weren't that harsh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So was there a certain point in your childhood where just everything blew up for you, that you're like, this acknowledgement of like, this is not working for me?
It wasn't necessarily that one moment that that threw over the whole pail, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it, I can't anymore. It was more of a process, me understanding, okay, there's a whole world that was hidden from me, and I would love to explore that and see that. And I was always that kind of guy, meaning when I was a child, I always tried to find more things, find out new things. I read tons of books, and I tried the very best to understand what I don't understand. What am I missing? I always felt like there's something missing, meaning that can't be my whole entire world. The world is so big. For this to be my whole world, that is way too small in relativity, and I would love to explore more. And I started to explore a little bit more, and then I realized, okay, there are more ways, and if that form of Judaism doesn't work for me, doesn't mean it's bad, meaning it works for many other people, but let me try to find my own path, and that's when I started my journey.
Okay, so take us through it. What was your steps to, I guess, find yourself or the path for you? Like, where did you go first?
The first challenge that I had was in Satmar, and Baruch Hashem, in most communities, we grow up knowing that mezuzah is something super important. And the hardest challenge was really me within myself was a fight. Am I staying? Am I leaving? If I'm leaving, am I still good? Am I staying? Am I doing something good? Because maybe I want to leave. Maybe the right thing for me is to leave. Again, leaving doesn't mean just get out of here. It means, try to find your own path. So it was a little bit, so the biggest challenge was making sense of mezuzah, which I got clarity on actually. This year, I got a new understanding of mezuzah, which is very interesting. You mind for share?
Sure, please.
You're really going to like this one. Mezuzah to everybody is, my father did X, Y, Z, let me do X, Y, and Z. He didn't do S, I'm not going to do S or X or whatever. Now, mezuzah to me is very meaningful and is very important, and I interpret it in a very interesting way. The idea is very simple. These days, because we can fall a little bit, the madraigas, let's go this way, everything is a balance. Everything is a balance in life. So when when Hashem sent us down in a generation so far from the original generation, so we have much more challenges, we can get up to much higher places. Everybody that can go very high can also go very low. If you can't go very low, means you can't go very high. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. Meaning, again, I think it's subjective, it's not objective, mm-hmm. But again, it's my humble opinion. Now, when someone can go very low, he can also go very high. Now, what happens these days is people are on a roller coaster. Some people can be a tzaddik one day, and the next day they, because they can be such a big tzaddik, they can go so low. Now, going back in generations, they weren't able to go so low because they were more stable people. So my interpretation of mezuzah these days is that I want to learn from the stability they had, although I can go higher and lower because we're in a dar where we can go lower, therefore means that we can go higher as well. And I would love to make that as into my mezuzah and learn from the stability they had, being able to just being more in a flow rather than going up and down so intensively.
Interesting. Okay, so it's a very cool take on it. I want to go through like your actual journey. Were you at a certain point, this may feel uncomfortable, I just want to ask it, were you at a certain point considered, in quotes, off the darach, meaning not part of your system?
I'll tell you what, I didn't always look like that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when you become a teenager and you start to realize, oh my gosh, okay, a lot that we missed and we're going to come back to, but just to stick to this one, I didn't always look like this, meaning now I look beautiful with my beard, my face, I look, we call it the samgeneman. I look like a gentleman.
Right, yeah.
I didn't always
look
like that.
You look like a cool chassid. You have a white shirt, but you have the buttons that have like blue in it. You know what I mean? And your payas are like slick payas, So it's, you have the best of both worlds.
I really love to see how people see the perspective of a chassid that is trying to leave or whatever. Someone that wasn't a chassid. It's amazing, fascinating. I would love to have that. I would love to have that perspective for once. It's interesting. Now, going back to the conversation, I didn't always look like that, meaning obviously every teenager that wants to become cool, and my interpretation of cool was, okay, I'm going to wear shorts, I'm going to wear tank tops and just be that cool kid. I dyed my hair blonde and I was that cool kid going around being that hip, kind of a hipster chassid, whatever.
Interesting.
And it was a very interesting experience. But again, obviously that was not the route that I wanted to take. It's just part of the process of growing up and realizing, okay, you have to settle down, you have to become a balanced person. There's a world and you have to deal with it.
Okay, so before we get to Robbie, I don't know the timeline. You at a certain point were on the streets. Was that before?
Okay, so I was in Satmar. Satmar didn't really work for me. At some point, they ended up, meaning I was thrown out of Yeshiva. They took me back, but they made me feel like they're going to do me a whole favor, that they're going to take me back. And I'm like, okay, I'm not in the business of feeling like I'm someone's mitzvah. Let me just, let's just call it quits. Mm-hmm. And I just left. And then then it was a little bit complicated, meaning I was on the streets for a few months trying to find out where am I going next, what am I doing. It was in the middle of the summer, everybody was in the camp, so I was lonely. I didn't have anybody to tank with even at night because everybody was in the camps upstate. So it was a little bit challenging these few months, and then I started hearing God's music.
Before that, actively, what did you do? Were you working? Were you just like walking around? Were you doing drugs? Like where were you at?
So Baruch Hashem, it's a good thing. And again, like I said, everything is a balance. Every single thing in life is a balance, and I can't stress this enough because I'm they call it a control freak. I always like to control myself. Baruch Hashem, I don't like to control others, but at least myself, I try to be in control of. So I never really found an interest in either alcohol, drugs, or any type of any things that would make you escape.
Vice. Right.
Meaning the ultimate idea of people trying to take alcohol, weed, or whatever it is they try to escape something that they can't handle. Me, I was so desperate to handle everything that I ran away from every escape. Not in a good way, but it ended up being a good thing because Baruch Hashem, I never got into alcohol, drugs, or things like that.
Right. It's interesting because I guess the feelings that you got when you're growing up, you're always feeling controlled. So those vices, I guess, would make you lose control. And you're like, no. The very thing that I'm running after is to have that control.
100%. This is exactly what it was. Meaning now looking back, that was the trigger for me to always want to be in control because control, it wasn't taken away from me. I just never got it. I found myself at 13 for the first time being in control in any shape, form, or way of myself. So everything is led for you, done for you. The path is drawn for you, and now it's the first time. Okay, I can breathe. I can do things. I can, really, it's all an illusion because we're not really in control of ourselves. There's Hashem, and it only brings anxiety living in the illusion that you're in control. But it at least felt very good, at least in the beginning, to be in control and making my own decisions and so on.
Okay, so then you started hearing music.
Yeah, so this is an interesting story. I heard this music, and again, I'm not going to sing it in Yiddish here because there's no point. Most people here don't understand Yiddish, and you guys should totally learn, but it's an important language to know. So, meaning I heard music of, if you find yourself in the depth of the Yetzer Hara and whatever, you shouldn't give up and whatever. And it was the first time I heard someone singing out of raw emotion without the words exactly clicking with a song, rhyming with a song or whatever. Just the whole beauty of the song is it being pure. And this is what pulled me most because what I was looking for all my life was purity and truth. So this is the first time I felt a sense of truth somewhere, and I ran after that with my life. I really wanted to capture that and get it into me. What does truth feel like? What does that raw purity feel like? And this is how I got drawn into it. If not for his music, I wouldn't have been there in the first place.
Interesting. Okay, fine. So could you break us down what exactly is system and your experience with it?
We could talk about it for hours, obviously, which is time that we don't have, but I'll give it to you in a very, very simple description. There's the community, meaning obviously I was drawn into it, and there's an interesting way that he has of accepting people, meaning officially he doesn't really reject anybody, but he wants to know that you want to be there strong enough. He doesn't want people to come in and be like, oh my gosh, this doesn't work for me. Okay, let me leave.
Like commitment. He wants commitment.
He wants commitment. And the way he does it, again, in my humble opinion, it's a little bit manipulative. He kind of pushes you away to a point where you yourself want to prove to yourself, okay, I want him to accept me because he pushes me away, and you run after it. And then after a few months, pushing you away and you wanting it so desperately and you want it so much, that's when he just gives you that hug that you waited for all your life. And
interesting.
Like, oh my gosh, okay. And then you just kind of get stuck there.
Interesting. Okay. So
to my perspective, I'll tell you what, some people are meant for a path to be drawn for them. And in that case, meaning they don't want to have a mind on their own. In that case, well, that's a great place because what he does is he takes over your mind. He takes over everything you stand for, everything, all your decisions, and he does it for you.
Meaning just to paint it, like it's a system. You subscribe to the system that he's... But
it's not only subscribe, the system becomes you. You are not yourself anymore. You can forget about anything you stand for, your personality, your color, meaning he decides... If you're the color red, he's going to decide you're yellow, you become yellow. It just whatever is being whatever is being drawn for you, that's who you have to become, and that is it.
Interesting. Okay.
So for me personally, I found myself after a year and a half not being myself, and it felt absolutely horrible, meaning I'm a guy that, originally, naturally, I wanted to be myself, wanted to hunt for truth and whatever. For someone to give me a definition of truth and say hunt for the truth, then automatically you're going to find what he wants you to find. What's the point of that? Again, for some people it's made, but for people that want to be truth hunters and they want to really find themselves in a pure way, in a healthy way, I don't really think it's a right approach for someone to take over your life and just guide you, because in that case, I could have stayed in Satmar. Well, if Satmar didn't work for me, why would this? And again, he kind of gives you a perspective of truth, and he makes you find it by him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I'm describing it well, but I'm just trying
It's
my
a
very
bit
best.
esoteric, but and like mysterious what you're explaining, but
That's exactly the community. The community is very mysterious. The Rosh Yeshiva, we call him the Rosh Yeshiva. He's a very interestingly close to the Litvish communities, where the Rosh Yeshivas are the respectable people, but this is not the same. Meaning, it's not viewed in the same way as a Rosh Yeshiva by the Litvish people.
right. It seems more like a Rebbe to me.
Not only a Rebbe, he's more than a Rebbe, a mentor, a father, someone you almost, I'm not sure if this is the right word to use, but people almost worship him.
Interesting.
He's superior in a way.
Interesting. We're definitely gonna. I think it's very interesting, but we're definitely gonna beep out who we're talking about. Meaning, obviously, we said his name, but anyone listening, like, I don't like, because I definitely, we're careful about potentially, it's obviously your experience, so we don't want to take that away, but at the same time, we don't want to,
right,
throw him on the boss, Lashon Hara, you know what I mean?
Exactly. I just want to be clear. I don't consider him a cult, and I do find it working for some people. Some people were on the streets, and they're meant to be led by people,
right?
And they got led by very unhealthy people. So the most important thing for them was being led by someone that actually brings them to at least Hashem, saying Prokim Mishnayos and so on, and doing so many beautiful things, respecting your parents and so on. So at least they're being led by someone original, someone that happens to be once what would be good for them, and that's the way they're being led. But again, if someone is not supposed to be led, meaning worshiping someone and having them being in control and owning your life, your mind, everything you stand for, is the absolute furthest from what I'm trying to accomplish. So
okay, so when you realize that this isn't working for you, what was your next step? Where did you want to go after that?
Then kind of my whole world collapsed on me, because he kind of put me, we actually called it in the past interview, which we're going to talk about.
Just to clarify, anyone listening, this is the second time us doing it, and I thought it was actually very thoughtful on your part. You're like, there's certain things I said, certain energy I thought I was too negative, and I'm like, hey, let's do this again. So, but yeah, go on.
Here I am. I just want to come off as the positive person I actually am, and that is the goal. So, after my whole world came crashing down on me, because someone was thinking for me for a year and a half straight, and growing up all my life, people were thinking for me instead of me doing the thinking. So for the first time, having a mind on your own, and oh my gosh, there's a real world with real problems. It really smacks you sometimes, and you really have to know how to take it. You really have to be prepared for this, and nobody obviously prepared me, because it was not really an option to be prepared for. So my whole world came crashing down on me, and I was on the streets for a few months, not even knowing who I am, because who I am was taken away from me. And who am I? What is this? I found myself like a 15-year-old newborn. That would be the very best description I can give it. Is I felt like a 15-year-old newborn. Oh my gosh, this is the real world. I'm in a new life, new alphabets. Everything is brand new. I never heard this. I never understood this. This is the first time I have to deal with it, and it just came crashing down on me. I couldn't handle myself, to be honest.
Wow. Okay. So how did you get out of that rut?
So I always had a habit of getting to know people, socializing, and sharing my pain instead of keeping it in me. A lot of people call me an open book. I always like to share. And for many of my friends that are probably going to be watching this, they're not going to be machadish anything new, honestly. They know everything about, I'm not the guy to hide and, try to eat myself up about things. I always let go. And again, I try to my very best. Some things you really can't let go, but not you can't, you won't. But I always try to be as open as I can, so I don't store garbage and at some point for it to pop. So I found myself surrounded with many good people that try to guide me, and that is a very good thing that I always try to build I call it the networking circle these days, but it's really friendship, family, and family that you can actually choose, not only the family you're born with. And these people really helped me and guided me. And someone once told me, you know what, why don't you try Beri Weber? I'm like, what do you mean Beri Weber? You mean the singer? He's like, yeah. What does a singer? What do you mean I try him? Do I go for voice lessons? Do I become a singer? What do I do? He's like, he has a yeshiva. And this was the shock of my life. A celebrity having a yeshiva. How does that work together?
Right.
And I started doing my research, looking up their Instagram account and so on. Getting a smartphone is a whole big deal. Meaning as you can understand, you live in a community. It's very similar to Amish, at least for people from the outside looking at the Amish community and the Hasidic community. It is very, very similar, especially Williamsburg, Monroe versus Bar Park, Monsey, which is a little bit more. We're going to call it open-minded for the sake of the conversation and for the lack of a better word. So that was it for me. So it was a big deal. Obviously, joined every channel, every single thing, everything I could learn new, everything that can make me more being part of the bigger society of the world. And that's when someone told me to go follow Beri Weber's Yeshiva, and I started doing my research. Who are they and what are they like? And it was a very interesting story. I wanted to get into Beri Weber's Yeshiva, and you can absolutely share this, meaning this is a very cool piece of information. As a Bacher really wanted to go into Beri Weber's Yeshiva. My father told me, not a chance, not happening. I tried to ask him why, and he was like, you're going to be away, you're going to be in Monsey the way you want. And I perfectly understand it from a father's perspective, having your son living in Monsey, knowing he's a rebel and he just wants to do whatever he wants.
Right.
Meaning this can end very, very badly.
We'll be right back to my conversation with Isaac, and it gets good. The Jewish world was obsessed with Charles Tyrwhitt shirts because they were great. But now we all know why Twillory is by far the first choice when it comes to shirts for me and you. Their shirts have these fantastic stretch components that actually helps the shirt stretch and breathe. They have special fabric by the collars and sleeves so it doesn't get ruined with your sweat. Like you wear a shirt for like a year and has like these weird stains. Twillory avoids that. And if you're like me, they have an incredible array of cool polo shirts and air shirts, which I'm wearing right now. They have white, blue, black, green, all the colors. And they also, right now, are having their annual August warehouse sale with insane deals, but it's only for a limited time. So go ahead and check it out. And if you are getting Twillory for the first time ever, guys, we've been talking about it for so long. Hello, let's go. Inspire. Use promo code INSPIRE for $18 off, and you'll get that off your purchase of $139. First time purchase. It's time to look and feel fresh. Twillory.com. Sorry, Charlie. Now, before we get back to the episode, no one likes throwing money in the garbage, especially doing it every single month. Are you paying over $40 to $50 per line for cell phone service? You're likely overpaying. With US Mobile, you can get a full data line for as low as $17.50 a month. US Mobile is a revolutionary wireless service that bundles minutes from all three major US carriers, giving you the best of each network. You can choose whichever network works best for you or your area, or switch networks while you're traveling. It is the best of all worlds of, you'll never have it like, oh, I don't have service because there's no certain, boom, you can just switch over. It's amazing. For families, US Mobile gets even cheaper with multiple lines. They also offer a talk and text plan with 2 GB of data for just $8 a month, perfect for kids or kosher lines. Thousands are switching to US Mobile for unbeatable savings. Why pay big bucks for Verizon or other big brands when you can get the same service for a fraction of the price? Sign up at usmobile.com/Lchaim or call 878-255-8940 and use promo code LivingLchaim for your first month free. Yes, first month free. Go to usmobile.com/Lchaim. Don't overpay. Switch today. And now back to this week's episode.
So my father didn't want me to go to Beri Weber's Yeshiva. I really, really wanted to go there, knowing that this is a place that is going to build me. He's going to let loose enough for me to experience myself enough to feel comfortable, but at the same time, it's going to be guiding me in a very healthy and loving way for me to nourish my need to be in control of myself, but at the same time, guiding me in the right places. So at the same time, I feel in control, and not in a manipulative manipulative way, just in a way of me being able to be myself, but at the same time being guided in the right direction and opening specific doors and showing, you know what, this might be the right direction for you, this might be the right direction for you, and so on. So I really wanted to go. I called up one of the amazing staff members in Beri Weber's Yeshiva, Zachariah. This guy is an Ashoma, unbelievable. And I called him up, had a talk with him. He had a talk with a cousin that I was very close to at the time, getting an understanding of who I am and so on. And Zachariah told me, are you sure your parents are okay with this? Because we have a rule that the parents have to be on one page with the staff here, and
right.
They have to be okay with you being in yeshiva. So I told him, yeah, sure, my parents are completely okay with. So Zachariah told me, okay, well, if your parents are okay with you coming here in yeshiva, I'd love to set up an interview. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do this. And I told my parents, what did I do? I couldn't tell my parents I set up an interview without your permission, because they're going to be like, hey, we were always completely open with the fact that we're completely not okay with you going there, going away from home. So I told my parents, actually, Beri Weber with the staff decided they're going to do you a favor and they're going to let you come in, not for an interview. They're going to let you know what the yeshiva is all about and give you an understanding of what the yeshiva is like. So my parents, I told that this is just going to be a schmooze where we're just going to have you guys are going to get an understanding of what the yeshiva is going to be like. And for the yeshiva, I told this is a complete interview. This is not a waste of time. So it just became perfect. And I walk into this interview, and Beri Weber starts with his rules. He has 3 no's and 3 yeses. 3 no's meaning the do's and the don'ts from the yeshiva, and that is the core rules, meaning just for you to be able to possibly grow in this place, these are the rules. And very, very interesting story, pretty long story. At the end, my parents decided, you know what, this might be a good fit for me, and I went into Beri Weber's yeshiva, which was one of the greatest things I've ever experienced.
Okay, I don't want to talk about that transformation, but I'm curious if you remember, what are the 3 do's and don'ts?
So again, we might have to do some beeps here. He has no weed, which is meaning if you escape, I can't really help who you are because who you are is not really who you are anymore. Then there is no girls because it's one of the biggest distractions, and no abuse between the boys. Don't disrespect no physical violence. Nothing between the boys, just keep yourself to yourself, be respectful about it, and so on. The 3 yeses, I do not remember them, unfortunately. I think it's number 1, you have to be committed and you have to actually come yourself. Nobody has to be you shouldn't have been convinced to come here. You have to want to come yourself, which is the only one and probably the most important one. And I do remember that one. And I'll always remember this one.
So what happened there that like you had such a different experience than your entire life?
Okay, number 1, it was Muncie. It was much more, I'm gonna say again, open-minded for the lack of a better word. It was a much more open place where I was exposed to much more. For an example, in Williamsburg, when you daven a shield, you daven with other Satmar people that think alike and so on. Here in Muncie, there is a Shiner shul, there is Breslov shuls. There's so much to experience and explore and so on. And there are so many people and so many great perspectives you can get on life just because you have such a diversity of people you can learn from and very healthy people. Again, a diverse place comes with, again, there's a balance, good and bad, but it was the most amazing thing for me because I heard so many great perspectives and it was the first time someone was willing to have arguments and conversations about belief and faith, things that were sacred and untouchable conversations became completely touchable and open. It was admired and actually it was
encouraged,
exactly. It was really encouraged to have these type of conversations, really get an understanding what do you stand for. If you don't know what you stand for, how can you stand for it strongly? They want in Beri Weber's yeshiva, the goal was for people to be built on stable grounds, for your ground to become stable and strong enough for you to know what you stand for and not move from that, whatever this might be. It doesn't necessarily have to be very I'm not sure if religious is the right word, but it didn't have to be in a specific setting or a specific life. Whatever you want to stand for, just stand for it strongly. And that was the core goal, which was set, again, in my opinion. Berri might be disagreeing with me that, he has many other things that were very prioritized other than this, but this was a priority for me that I learned from this place, which is amazing. It gave me really stable and concrete ground for me to stand on and build from there.
That's incredible. Okay, so then at what point did you transition to Israel?
So Beri Weber has, he evaluates the boys. Obviously, constantly he keeps going. He has staff meetings and he gets an idea of, okay, where's everybody standing? People got in here. I have a goal for these kids and he has a custom package for anybody. It's not a one size fits all, obviously, especially these type of places when you're talking about people that are more artistic and they want to explore themselves and they want to explore in different ways. They want to express themselves in different ways. You can't really have a one size fits all. And that's the real goal of the whole idea of Beri Weber's Yeshiva, which means a shining star. You have to be a shining star for yourself. So, sorry, what was the question again?
Israel. How did you get to Israel?
How did I get to Israel? So, Beri Weber, as he evaluates the boys, he always sees the opportunity, and he's actually the opposite of which is the guy that says, okay, I thought you now a way of life, now keep sticking to it and keep to my community because this is the only way this can exist. This whole approach to life that I'm giving you is the real approach and you have to stay here. He tries to build community and keep the people together. Now, Beri Weber is completely the opposite. We say Himmel and Erde, the sky and the earth. Beri Weber's idea was, well, you came here to learn something. That's the reason you came. Now you learned it, leave. Prove me that my work is right. How can you prove me that I've done a good job if you never leave my place and you stay here and you just want to be protected and comforted all your life? He wants to take the things that you learned in yeshiva and make something out of it. So some boys he sends to work, some boys he sends to other yeshivas. For an example, in Israel, for me, he felt like the most important part for me is to learn how to be independent. So Israel was the greatest choice because it's the furthest away from home. And actually, when I came here, the Rosh Chabira, I was in GELT Chabira. The Rosh Chabira told me, the very first time I met him, he told me, I just want to let you know that there is no babysitting here. If you want to lay in bed all day doing your thing, nobody's going to stop you. You're in control of your own life. You got to take control of this. And this was the most, again, a very important thing for me in the way I've built myself, that I learned how to be independent and make decisions on my own and know that nobody's going to help me other than myself. And I have to really help myself and I have to be encouraged myself. And I can't be motivated from outside things because in that case, the second the motivation leaves, what am I good for? So I really had to be encouraging from within and I had to be self-motivated.
So what was your day-to-day in Israel?
Day-to-day in Israel, I was very flowy there, meaning I did my own thing. I went up to the R Beri, which was a fascinating experience. I had a lot of questions, and it's a very interesting way I describe it. People ask me, well, you had so many questions on belief, faith, and so on, and how did this all fall away? And the answer to that is, meaning people ask me, how do you get your answers? Meaning, okay, you had so many questions, now you don't live with these questions anymore. Who gave you the answers? And the answer to this question is, the questions don't get answers, just the questions fall away at some point. Meaning, imagine a 2-year-old wants a lollipop after eating tons of sugar, and his parents say, no, you can't have a lolly. And this kid is crying, why can't I have a lolly? Does he still have that question when he's 30? Does he really have the question, why wasn't I able to get that lollipop? No, the question did not get an answer. It just fell away. Well, obviously. So that happens as you learn more and you go more into spirituality, not necessarily, meaning religion is obviously very important, but it comes like in Hasidus, it is very encouraged, and the original Hasidus, at least, with what Hasidus was supposed to be, is encourage people to be very spiritual and let your heart go as well. Obviously, Moich Shalat Lev, it's a whole conversation for itself, but which I'm not going to go into, but we could spend hours doing that. But it was very, very important to me. So Israel taught me a lot to be on my own, and it was very important.
And there you encountered Rabbi Yontif Glazer, no? The Possible You seminar.
Actually, not in
Oh, wasn't
Israel.
there?
No.
Oh, it was in America?
It was actually here in America.
It's funny because I did the Possible You seminar in Israel when I was in Israel. Yeah.
You lived in Israel?
I lived in Israel, yeah. Yeah, I was a bacher there. I think I
really
try to find myself there in ways, and yeah, I was there for 4 years single and 2 years married.
Very nice. Oh, you were married, like you
4
lived
years
there.
Yeah.
Married for 2 years.
Yeah.
Is that something? I'm sorry, I'm not the interviewer.
No, it's
here.
fine.
Oops.
You can ask. It's fine. I usually know.
Very nice. Can you agree with me that being a bacher in Israel is the most important part of the journey of becoming a stable and independent person?
I don't know if it's for everyone, but I will say, based on my experience, that I was the youngest I still am the youngest of 4 boys.
Oh, wow.
And kind of the baby, always taken care of. And the amount of independence that being in Israel, and I was in Rabbi Sender's Yeshiva, they kind of, I wasn't really on my own. They're kind of a little on top of you, but still it's like trying to get Shabbos meals and do my laundry and just figure out you're faced with the question, like, what are you doing with your life? And like, why, like you could get away with making trouble, and like, should you do that? Should you not? Like, you have to really face who you want to be. And
very well.
I can't imagine where my life would be if I personally did not go there. I really feel like I found myself there.
It really teaches you to take charge of your life. You are ultimately making the decisions, and only you can help yourself.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So that was a great idea for me to be in Israel.
Okay, so let's I guess fast forward to the Possible You, unless there's something interesting that I'm skipping over.
Not necessarily. So we're gonna go over a few things. So when I came back from Israel, I didn't know if I'm going back, meaning it was the end of this month. My older brother got married. I'm second to the oldest, like I said. My oldest brother got married, and I was in Israel and came home for the wedding.
How old are you at this point?
I'm 20.
No, meaning in the point of the story where your brother's getting married and you're coming back from
That was
Israel.
18, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2
Okay.
years ago, came back from Israel for the wedding, meaning usually the boys come home for Pesach and I came home for Purim because right after Purim was the wedding. Now, I went to the wedding and after that, obviously I stayed, I'm not going to go back for another month. So I figured I'll stay in America. And then I started thinking, should I go back? Should I not go back? I learned to be independent already. So meaning, well, what's going to be the point going there? Again, it's an amazing life and it's very open-minded, meaning we call it the moichen, the godless. You really have a godless there, like a really open mind and it's amazing. But you can't really live in a moichen your whole life. You really have to become something and really get to work. So to the real work, the real life. So when I was here in America, I thought, should I not? And then I have an uncle that offered me a job at his boss invested in another company, whatever. And I went there to work and it didn't work out after a half a year. It did not work out for me. I worked there for the whole summer. And then my whole life came crashing down. Okay, so this job was not for me. I just lost a job and I made an important decision. I could have gone back to Israel. My life would have been amazing, but I decided to stay here. I failed. I considered myself a failure. Obviously, nobody's a failure unless they give up themselves. But I was really at my ending point where I was like, okay, I tried so many things. Hashem, what do you want now? And that's when I have many amazing people in my life. And one of the most amazing people in my life, his wife told me, you know what? Why don't you give the possible you a shot? And I was like, what do you do there? You sit in a circle and you do, it sounded sketchy to me.
It definitely sounds super sketchy before you do it. I agree
oh
with
my
that.
gosh, I freaked out. What do you mean? Someone is gonna go into my thoughts and clean everything. How does this even work? It was the first time I was proposed to healing at all. Meaning, I know you have to be in control of yourself. You have to process your emotions in the way you want them to be, regardless if it's healthy or unhealthy. Like, I really want to be in control of myself. And here someone wants to really make me let go of the control without him necessarily taking it. Meaning, it was the first time where someone said, give up your control, but not to someone, just give it up. And it was fascinating to me. So, including a few people that decided, this might be the right decision for me, decided, so many people that care about me want me to give the possible you shot. I'll do that. And I went to the possible you. Ooh, that was a decision. That was an amazing decision, meaning it was just 4 days of cleansing so many things that was stuck in me for years. And you're saying you're a possible you graduate yourself. I think you can agree to that it's just so mind-opening. And even people that go out of there without practicing the actual possible you journey anymore, they walk out with a perspective that they can't really lose. It's a burned bridge to your comfort zone. That's how I walked out of the Possible You seminar. I walked out of the Possible You seminar not necessarily having something that, I implemented in my life that completely changed it, but just the view and the perspective that I got there was so unheard of in a way before, and it was so brand new and just, it became part of me. And it changed many things in very, very graduating ways. It wasn't extreme.
Gradual, right.
Very gradual.
Step by step, right.
Exactly. I did not become that brand new person right away. Obviously, I was on a high for 2 weeks, believing I'm unstoppable and the whole world is Bishvili Nivru, everything is mine. But obviously, you come down from that and you start, slowly, maturely implementing all these beautiful concepts and ideas into your personal life. And it was fascinating.
Yeah, I had a great experience there too. And it was definitely weird, but not in a bad way. Like I've never weird, just like I was so unused to it. Mm-hmm. And it's I don't know the group that you did it, but like in our group we had like a Hasidic person. I had a kid who was in my class growing up. I had people I didn't know.
Wow.
I had I'll call him out. Donnie Kunstler, he does a podcast with us. He was there. Oh. We had a guy with like he looked like he had tons of long hair and a massive beard, and like he was a hippie. It was a very like interesting group,
very
but like
diverse.
But we also felt so connected, and I think the best word that you use is it was very empowering. Like I love one of the things that you got to get 5 no's, right? It's he to make up this concept.
Oh, that
but like,
was
you have
amazing.
To, those who don't know, it's like you have to go out into the world and ask someone a question and get no as a response. So like, I remember me, like I went to an ice cream store. I'm like, could I get this ice cream for free? They're like, yes. And I'm like, what? And they just gave, you realize, first of all, so many people say yes to you. And also when they say no, not a big deal. Like you go on with life, and we're so scared to ask those
It
questions.
was the most amazing thing for me. Like the 5 no's, the second I realized that the goal of the 5 no's is just to realize that it's a yes world, it was just a bomb.
It's
it
really
was
great.
amazing.
It's really great. We'll be back to my favorite moment from the interview. But how many of you have a Sofer, a Jewish scribe, in your contacts? I guess at least 98% of you do not. Let's change that. I'm about to share Sruli from Stam Azoy's number, and you should save it in your phone. Here is why. The Shulchan Aruch, the Medrash, Gemara, all emphasize how a mezuzah protects your home. And sure, alarms and cameras are important, but wouldn't you want beautiful kosher mezuzahs guarding your doorposts? It's surprising how many people move into a new home and don't even check their mezuzahs. Thousands of homes need proper mezuzahs, and it's so easy to take care of. What's unique about Stam Azoy is that Sruli is a top professional and just a WhatsApp message away. The best part? Get VIP service around Bar Park and the surrounding areas, and the team will literally come to you and do all your mezuzahs. And even if you're out of Bar Park, if your home is large enough, they'll travel to you and handle everything with a minimum requirement for further travel. Just last week, someone sent Stam Azoy a video of their Tefillin straps, and boom, fixed on the same day. Stam Azoy even wrote a Megillah for someone, which led to an order for a Sefer Torah, all through WhatsApp. My point is, they're incredibly easy to work with, backed by world-class Rabbanim and amazing Hechsherim. Stam Azoy ensures you get the highest standards at the best price possible. Maybe you need your mezuzahs checked today, maybe in 3 years, or maybe you need Tefillin. Who knows? Mention Living Lchaim and get $10 off your purchase. So save Stam Azoy's number. I know you're, I'll save it out. No, save it now. Save the number, Stam Azoy. It's 347-831-1600. You can even send them a WhatsApp if you want, and get the best mezuzahs, Sefer Torahs, Tefillin, and top-notch customer service for all your Sofer needs, which is wild because they have the best pricing in the business. Again, mention Living Lchaim and get $10 off your purchase. Stam Azoy, that's 347-831-1600. Have the number in your phone. You shouldn't need them, but you probably will need them because we all need to check our mezuzahs at some point or it's Tefillin. They are the best to work with. It's time to do the mitzvah of mezuzah the right way. Now, before I get back to this week's episode, I have a question for you. Yes, you, listening while you're driving your car, boom, busted. Or cleaning the dishes, boom, busted. Or staring up at your ceiling, boom, busted. Is your business ready for a game-changing transformation? Did you know that Bitbean is the best software company that's helping businesses like yours grow smarter, faster, and stronger? You probably did know if you listened to the past 50 episodes. Well, whether you're in real estate, running an Amazon empire, managing nursing homes, leading a large organization, or even working with government, Bitbean has the expertise and innovation you need. And what makes Bitbean different? They don't just deliver software. They bring in a team of real people who truly will want to get to know your business, or they actually might know your business, and they take the time to understand your challenges, your goals, and what makes your industry tick. Then they create a tailor-made solution that not only solves your problems, but also positions you for incredible growth. Bitbean's technology isn't just smart, it's transformative. And they are the partners you want on your side when you're ready to scale up and dominate your market. Don't just take our word for it, experience the Bitbean difference for yourself. Ready to turn your business potential into reality? Well, visit bitbean.com today and discover how the best in the business can help you reach new heights. Now back to this week's episode. Let's talk about your business, because I think it's cool going from like the world that you're in and you don't really have any experience with business, and then you're running this nice diamond empire over now. So like how did that manifest?
Well, not really an empire. I hope it's gonna become one day. I am good at what I do. I'm not putting myself down, but I don't have an empire yet. But here's how it worked. When I left my job and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm a solo flyer. Meaning I came to realize I'm a solo flyer. It's hard for me to accept someone taking charge and telling me what to do. Which again, it's kind of a rebellious nature, but at the same time, it's a nature of, I'm a solo flyer and not many people understand, meaning artists is not something that is really understood. Again, throughout history, very same thing rules. When I went into business, it went like this. I decided, you know what? It's time for me to work on my own. What am I starting? I'm an 18-year-old. What am I going into? And it was very, very hard because I didn't really know what to do. If I'm opening something myself, it comes with a huge amount of responsibility, people that you can't let down, especially I have an investor, and having an investor is a huge amount of responsibility because it's not really, when you play with your money and it goes bad, okay, well, it goes bad, you have enough money, you'll give something else a shot. But when you have someone else's money, you can't, there's no second chance of like, oh my gosh, I messed up your first batch, give me another batch. It doesn't really work this way. So, when I went into business, actually, I got to know from over 50 people. I was 18 years old. I came to people. I would like X amount of money for my venture, meaning it was a whole thing how I decided to go into the jewelry industry. But I decided to go into the jewelry industry, and I'm obsessed with fashion. Everything about me screams fashion. I love it. And happens to be, I have many, Baruch Hashem, I have many wealthy clients that when they make something nice, and I always help the family with fashion, I go shopping, meaning it's part of what I enjoy. And people feel the compassion, meaning I'm not trying to sell myself here, but when I come, meaning you can feel the compassion that I have for jewelry. My whole world lights up when I talk about it. Fashion is really my thing. So when I went into business, I actually got more than 50 no's. I called up people, hi, I would love X amount of money, a new venture that I'm starting. I would love to go into that. And people are like, are you supposed to be in Yeshiva? What are you doing here asking for these amounts of money? It's meaning people couldn't make sense of it. And Baruch Hashem, at some point, meaning you got the mezuzahs, and the Chazal say, if someone says he found, if someone says he was searching and he did not find, don't believe him. If someone says that he was searching and he found, you should believe him. And the ultimate idea is, if you're going to look long enough, you are going to find what you want to be looking for.
Right.
And the same idea from in the way a person wants to go, Hashem guides him. And I really wanted to get there, and Baruch Hashem, thank you Hashem, and I can't thank Hashem enough for where I got. And Baruch Hashem, I'd love to consider myself at least successful enough that I'm on the very, very right path, and I'm good at what I do. People love my service, and I'm a private jeweler. I come down to people's houses, and that is it. So I got into business, Baruch Hashem. I got my investor. Baruch Hashem, business has ups and downs. I had a crazy story last year, actually in the summer. It actually becomes a year from now. I invested every single part of the profits that I had. Very interesting story. I wanted to do an event, a jewelry event upstate for people to come enjoy and see beautiful jewelry. Now I invested every single dollar the company had at the time. It was after a few months saving up close to $100,000 in profits after all expenses, which was, crazy number back then, extra $100,000. And I invested it all in an event, a jewelry event, believing that it's going to bring me sales. Now I sent out 5,000 invitations. I had 12 people going around knocking on doors and giving personal invitations to the jewelry event coming up with gift cards, whatever. And I had a specific venue, and that venue was on the invitation. And that venue canceled on me 3 hours before the event.
Oh, wow.
After 5,000 people got an invitation to be there, and obviously I lost $100,000 automatically because I had to find another location right away. I had a few people, a few public figures telling people, change the location due to security reasons. I didn't want people to see it in a negative way. It was very hurting, people canceling on you because, again, I don't want to hurt these people, and I don't want to give too much information, but it was probably the very worst thing someone has done to me, meaning I called up these people saying, listen, it was supposed to be in a bungalow colony, and that bungalow colony decided, well, you didn't ask anybody permission, whatever. It was a long conversation. I told them, you're not fighting a 30-year-old that can make an event tomorrow. You're fighting an 18-year-old that took all his savings making an event. What are you trying to do here? And unfortunately, I lost it all that night. And people called me up, people knowing that I'm very hurt. They called me up and saying, Mitzvah, the next venture is going to work out. Mitzvah, we say, Hashem should fulfill what you lost. And I was like, what next venture? What are you talking about? I am not going anywhere. And that gave me so much, it gave me an energy boost for the next few months to just hustle it up and make back that money. And I never ever got back the amount of energy that I had back then, knowing everybody expected me to fail, and they even were okay with it. And that's exactly what pushed me to just keep pushing. And Baruch Hashem, I've advertised with many popular people, and I had a lot of amazing people using me, referring me to others. And
fascinating.
That is it.
Fascinating. So before we end, there's like one or two topics I want to cover with you.
Sure.
What advice would you give to parents or rabbanim or just people dealing with someone going off the derech? What advice would you give to them?
So I want to start by saying a very interesting gemura that there is. The Nusi from Klal Yisrael at the time saw a Tana going into his house and saw that he lives in a very cheap house. There's no normal paint and whatever. And the Nusi went over to this Tana and said, what a shame to a generation that the Talmidei Chacham, meaning the very best of our generation, don't respect themselves enough to live in a nice house. And the Tana answered back to that Nusi, I'm very sorry for the generation that has a Nusi that doesn't know that, the people from his daughter are struggling financially, therefore they can't. And that Nusi gave in to him saying, okay, you know what, you are actually right. And he apologized. I think he stepped down from Nusi, and another Nusi came. whatever. Just the concept is a very important concept for Rabbunim to know. So I'm not sure if any Rabbunim are listening to this. You have to really understand your people, because if you don't understand your people, you're going to be the person that is going to be sorry and say, this person is doing wrong, this person is doing wrong, and that person is doing wrong, other than you understanding why they're doing what they do and how that can be better. Now, as for how parents should treat their kids, again, I'm giving you the kid's perspective, which is equally important, happens to be, and not many people listen to it, which is unfortunate. From a child's perspective that was officially considered OTD, Baruch Hashem, now I'm in a much better place. Obviously, there is always room to grow, but in general terms, I grew a lot, and I was, let's call it, for the lack of a better word, we're going to call it OTD, which is on the derech, off derech, whatever people make sense of this word. And the most important part for me is, and unfortunately, a lot of organizations teach parents, okay, you should treat your kids with white gloves, meaning they're supposed to be treated with white gloves. And that actually does a lot of damage. A lot of kids don't, and actually everybody that was considered OTD that I know, they did not want to be treated with white gloves. They wanted to be treated fair and equal. They don't have to be equal, but they wanted to be treated equal, because that's how it's supposed to be. On his way, not yours. So the idea of treating kids with white gloves does a hell of a lot of damage, because these kids feel, okay, now I became a problem. I'm going to be treated and I'm going to be taken care of and comforted. I don't want to be comforted. I just want to be treated fairly. If you tell my other siblings not to do something, tell me also not to do it. Don't like, oh my gosh, okay, you can, because it feels very cheap. I've experienced it personally, and it feels very cheap. If you want your kids to be at least on one page with you, don't ever make them feel like they're either special more than any other of their siblings, or any less than them. Treat them equal, treat them fair, and that is going to get them a Mietz Hashem that they're going to find at some point. Let me tell you something, everybody settles down at some point. I don't know one person, meaning Chaz v'Shulam, they're unfortunately, when it comes to drugs, people do sometimes bad decisions and they can't really go out of it.
Right.
Meaning it ruins your life, it fries your brain, it's life-changing. But anything that is not life-changing that your kids do, including not being religious, including many other things, just know that it's part of a journey. Don't freak out that this is who they're going to become, because that's not really who they even want to become. It's just part of the journey of them trying to experience different things for them to try to find their balance of life. Don't freak out. It is completely okay, and they're going to be amazing and wonderful people, and they're going to live in society. They might even become Rebbes, Rabbunim, Yeshivas, business owners, so many special people doing so much chesed, and just accept that and know that.
That's really, really powerful. Thank you for that. And I just want to finish off. So where are you now? You live in Muncie?
I live actually in Monroe with my parents. My parents moved to Monroe. I lived away from home for 4 years. Obviously, I couldn't handle the differences that I had with my parents, so I started by living in Muncie, Beri Weber's Yeshiva. Then I went to Israel for another close to a year. And then I lived in Borough Park because I worked over there. And then I moved back home opening my own business. I had to cut on expenses. And so I moved back home and I learned to love it with the possible you help. There's one thing that I want to bring out about all these OTD, so-called OTD Bocherim, which is something super important, is you have to understand that I'm not sure about before the Holocaust. I'm not sure what was, again, there was obviously many OTDs back then, and I'm not sure which part of the community they were, meaning if it was the very lowest of the community, the very smartest, I am not really sure, although we know that, the Maskilim and these people were genius philosophers and so on, and these were, it was the very best that left the community, but right before the war, I'm not really sure. But now in our generation, just know that these OTD Bocherim, and probably girls as well, again, I can't speak for them, but just know that they're truth hunters. They're trying to find something meaningful for them, and that's the reason they do everything they do. They do not do it to hurt anybody. They do not do it because they want to do any damage to anybody else. And it's not really anybody's business, meaning who are you to take damage of something that they do? It's their choice. Everybody has their own free will, at least the illusion that they have their free will. And everybody should do with it whatever they want. And believe me, they're going to end up being great people. And one thing I wanted to bring out is the Novi spoke about it, meaning the Novi, I believe it was the Novi Tzfania, said, it's going to come a generation before Mashiach times, before the ultimate, and when everything is going to become back one. People are not going to be hungry for bread. People are not going to be thirsty for water. They're going to be desperate to hear the word of Hashem. And this is exactly what these Bukhram are doing. They're trying to find the word of Hashem. And that Novi said he is jealous to be of that dar. So respect your kids that there was an actual Novi that was desperate to be literally like them. Respect that.
Wow, very powerful. Okay, I want to end off with a question, or just talking about your experience, because the reason why we did another episode, because we did one and it's never going to air, because you felt that I thought it went great, but you felt like it was maybe too negative in certain ways. And I want to bring out, like, the point of this conversation is so people going through the challenges that you've gone through, like, they can understand it. So I want to end off with what's something that you wish the world knew more about Satmar, because I don't think, and you could tell me, you didn't come on here to be like, I don't like Satmar. No. Right. You came on here to say, this was my experience. It's right. For many people, great. For me personally, it was challenging, which is fine, So I want to know what positive thing you say about them. And
sure, I'll be more than happy to. First, I want to explain the first podcast that was actually, that is never going to air. The reason I decided that I would love to do this again is because I came off as a judge. I came off in the podcast as a judge. I said, this was my experience, therefore X, Y, and Z, done. I labeled many communities and many people, and it's not really fair to label people. I don't speak for them, meaning I barely have with them anything in common. Right. So how do I have the right to judge them? And I do not want to come off as a judge, although growing up in a community where judging is part of life, meaning it's not a bad thing. It's just part of the community, and the community is set in a way where judging is an important life skill. In most of the world, don't judge, and it's actually important not to judge. But at the same time, I grew up in a community where judging is part of life, not in a bad way. It's just a part of the life. So I did not want to come off judgy. I wanted to come off more giving you my perspective and giving people the opportunity to understand themselves how they want to perceive the knowledge I give them. So that's something I wanted to make clear. Yeah. Now, going back to Satmar, one good thing I can say about them. First, I want to make it very, very clear. Satmar Rebbe was against Zionism, which is very obvious. Well, I'm personally pro-Israel, and well, most of Judaism is really, besides that small minority. But I just wanted to make something clear. He helped many people, and there's actually a story which I heard firsthand of one of the, we call it the Stam mentioned, people that actually were around the house and helped him out a lot. And he told me a fascinating story. There was an IDF commander that came into Satmar Rebbe. Many people came to him for bruchas. He was a very holy man, and people came for bruchas knowing Lchaim. And he came into Satmar Rebbe and came for a brucha. Satmar Rebbe asked him, what do you do? And he told Satmar Rebbe, I'm a commander of the IDF. Nobody lied to him. And he was not the guy that you're able to lie to. And you know what he did? He took out the money that he got from all the Pidyonis from the past few weeks and gave it to him. And he's like, Rebbe, I did not come for money. I came for a bracha, for a blessing. And the Rebbe told him, yes, I am going to give you that money. Give it you. As you're a commander, you probably have, unfortunately, soldiers under you that died in the war. It was probably after the 67 war. I'm not really sure. Maybe the war before that. And he told them it's after a war, people died. Make it easier for the families and divide that money into the families of these fallen soldiers, so at least you ease some of their pain. That was Satmar Rebbe. Satmar Rebbe was an extremist when it came to his opinions, and there are many interesting stories about him, and we could go on and on. There's actually one story. There was a very big. There's a big newspaper. It's a magazine, and there was a writer there that cursed out Satmar Rebbe all along. He just cursed him out, and spoke about him, how he's wrong and so on, how the whole Shula Shvi is like not allowed to have a Medina, proved him wrong and so on. It was a Frima, but a very, very pro-Zionist newspaper. One of the writers there unfortunately got cancer and had to come here for treatments. And he came here and he had to raise $10,000. $10,000 back in the days, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions. These days, we're talking about years ago. And someone told him he came here sleeping with his Zionist friends, the people from his community, and they told him, by the way, you have an option. They made an event for him, and they raised $2,000. I'm sorry if this is a little bit of a long story. I hope
it's all good, don't worry.
Because it's important for people to hear. they made an event for him, and he raised $2,000. But 2,000 he has a gap of $8,000, and he felt very down. And they told him there is an option. There is one guy, he always gives out money, and that is Satmar Rebbe. And he's like, Satmar Rebbe, I curse him out. He's like, he's not gonna want to help me. And they're like, he will. He went into Satmar Rebbe, and Satmar Rebbe asks him, who are you? What do you do? And he told him, Rebbe, I'm sick, if you can help me out. And he's like, what do you do? He says, I'm a writer. Where are you a writer? Satmar Rebbe knew everything. Nothing was hidden. He knew all the information. He knew everything about the Zionist magazines, what they say. He knew everything. He was a very knowledgeable person. Always liked to hear. He had people inform him of everything. And that writer told him, this is my name, and I write in that Zeitung. That I was like, oh, so it's you. Very nice. Whatever. He had a conversation with him, knowing who he is and knowing that he's kind of an opponent to him. And the person walked out of there with $8,000 in his hand.
Wow.
But it was a ridiculous amount of money. And so just to give you a perspective, Satmar is a community where there's so much chesed and so many organizations are based on Satmar, and happens to be Satmar Kiryas Yoel, Satmar Monroe sent out many packages of aid to the IDF.
Right.
So you can't make that away. Obviously, everything comes with a balance. Being extreme on this way comes with an extreme on many other ways that can be hurting to people. And one thing that I have to make very clear, there is a difference between Satmar and a Tirakarta.
Yeah.
People do not know that because they're actually dressing the same. There's a huge difference. And actually, Satmar Rebbe detached them from Satmar, meaning they originally probably came out of Satmar being the most extreme community, but Satmar Rebbe kind of got them to a side, and he respected them as people, but he didn't want to.
Yeah, he
like, didn't want them to be in our
associate
community.
with
exactly.
them. Yeah,
we don't associate with any Arabs. Meaning, Satmar Rebbe was he was like, it's unheard of to go march with murderers, and he was always against that.
Right,
I want that to be clear.
Yeah. Well, okay, fine. Isaac, thank you so much for doing this, sharing your story, coming back again.
Thank you.
It was great, and can't wait to see where you're gonna go next.
And Hashem, I'll keep you posted along the way. I'm gonna go to very good places. Let me tell you that much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. And if you made it this far, drop a comment saying, wow, WOW. It's interesting. Isaac shared with me that he's not finished with his journey yet. And I think that's such a powerful idea. Are any of us really finished with our journeys? If we're still living, that means there's more to discover, more to grow. And before I wrap up, a special thank you to our sponsors, Bitbean, the top software company that will help your business excel. Stam, Azoy, the only Sefer you need in your contacts. Save his number, 347-831-1600. Of course, you'll get $10 off if you mention Living Lchaim. Again, legitimately save his number. US Mobile, where you can get your first month free with code Living Lchaim at usmobile.com/Lchaim. And everyone is switching to them because who doesn't like saving money? Who doesn't like having better service? And of course, Twillory, my favorite clothing brand on the planet. Try the shirts. You will love them. And we actually shot this episode a few months ago, and Isaac later called me asking to redo it because he felt he came across too negative. I didn't see that. I saw someone who was always striving to grow, but we reshot, and that's what you just watched. Now, we know it's not easy to leave behind what you and your family believe in, and that journey can be incredibly challenging and complex, but that's not really what this episode is about. As someone who's from, I deeply value and believe in the importance of respecting and honoring the traditions you were raised with. These traditions form the foundation of who we are, grounding us in our identity and connecting us to the generations that came before us. However, respecting your roots doesn't mean you should stop seeking the truth. It's easy to go through life on autopilot, finding the path laid out for you without ever questioning or truly understanding it. But even if you're born into what might be the truest truth, it's essential that you choose and accept it for yourself. Faith isn't something that can be passively inherited. It has to be actively embraced, questioned, and internalized. We live in a world with so many different paths within Judaism. There are countless Hasidic groups. There's Litvish, there's Yeshiva, there's Sephardi, there's shuls, each with its own unique approach to connecting with Hashem. It's important to explore and find the path that speaks to your soul, the one that makes you feel closest to the divine. This doesn't mean abandoning what you're taught, but rather deepening what your connection and understanding by finding where your personal journey leads you within the broader framework of our rich tradition. And of course, the ultimate goal is to ensure that your relationship with Hashem is genuine and deeply rooted in a truth that you've discovered, chosen, and embraced on your own. Remember, the search for a connection and truth is a lifelong journey, and it's one that's deeply personal, but it's also one that brings you closer to the essence of who you are and to Hashem, who is the ultimate source of all truth. Remember, inspiration is everywhere. L'chaim.
Living Lchaim.